Should Mike Tyson, have you heard of him?
Oh, that's a good one. Wow. He got you all right. I'm not taking the abuse, okay?
Yes, I have.
If he identifies as a female, should he be allowed to box?
Well, look, again,
No, that's a very simple question, because you said yes, but as it relates to this, if you identify as a female, not having the sex change operations, but if you identify as a female, you ought to be able to, biological man ought to be able to play in a biological female sport.
well, the short answer is yes, somebody who is trans.
Okay, that's all.
Someone who is trans.
That if he identifies, should he be allowed to enter a boxing match with a biological female?
Well, I think there's room for, as the NAACA and the IOC, they've accepted trans women as athletes for many years on a sport-by-sport, case-by-case basis. It's not an absolute, it's not an absolute inclusion.
But the answer is yes. If he identifies, he ought to be able to box.
I didn't say that.
Earlier you said if he had,
well,
let me just ask you this. I thought earlier you said if you identify, that yes, that qualifies you.
The short answer is yes, somebody who is trans.
Okay, that's all.
Someone who is trans. What it had to do with the question I think you're referring to is over facilities and
No.
bathrooms. About
Participation.
if they identify, if they want to participate. So if you want a trans girl, a trans woman, if that's what you identify as, I believe you should have the opportunity to participate in the sport that's consistent with your gender. You should be able, a trans girl needs to be able to participate.
She identifies as I'm asking, if she identifies as a female,
Yes.
if she identifies as a male, she ought to be able to compete.
Yeah. Well, look, the example you brought up of Mike Tyson, that brings up this image of.
He doesn't want to meet Elon anymore.
Nah, come on, I didn't meet her. You meet everybody because this whole world is a school. Explain to him this world is a school. And everyone in here is each other's teachers. We all learn from each other. Yeah, even when you don't like a person, you can learn what not to do from somebody by meeting them.
No. Is that a person?
Yeah, that's the world. That's the world we live in.
This extraordinary athlete, highly developed musculature, but the idea that males, trans women, that's who trans women are, or trans girls for that matter, are these human beings that are going to take advantage of their biological advantages. I think that's a misconception about participation.
Have you looked at pictures of Leah Thomas?
I have.
As compared, is he obviously a male or is he a female?
I have. Well, I want to just remind you that this bill is not about most elite competitions. It's about K-12 and college students. And what this bill does, it's a blanket ban over all participation of trans girls and women.
Okay,
so this issue of elite, we're arguing about, we're discussing elite competitions, and that, I'm telling you, is something that can be, is already being dealt with and doesn't need the government, does not, I mean, I respect you, Ms. Norman. You have a defined philosophy about limitation of government. And I'm telling you that what this bill does, it doesn't, one, solve the problem of elite competition and the potential unfairness that may ensue. But what it does do is it eliminates the opportunity for trans kids to connect and be part of a community.
But Mark, I think you, Ms. Fox, I'll get right with you. I think what you're saying is, if take Mike Tyson, take any athlete, if he's male, biological male, that he can identify and then cross compete, which That's staggering that you're saying something like that.
Would
Because
the
roll the
gentleman-
clock back.
Well,
Would the
Mr. Norman, if I could
gentleman
just,
yield
if I could just.
for- Quick question.
Okay, go ahead.
Would the gentleman yield for, are we talking about Mike Tyson, whether or not he identifies as a female, continuing to compete as a heavyweight? Because this is one of, there's a classification there, so he would be competing as a heavyweight boxer.
I'm saying if there's a women's boxing team that he qualifies for the weight, he can identify, as I think what Mark says, he can identify as a female and compete. But what is staggering is roll the clock back to a Mike Tyson when he was 12 years old. The stature hadn't changed. He was a biological man. But I think what Mr. Takano's saying is he can identify even when he was 12 and enter a female's bathroom, and which is staggering to me. I don't know if you've talked to Riley Gaines as I have. When you had Leah Thomas assaulting females, you could see his male genitalia. You could see that, and he was assaulting young women. She's on the record with that.
Assault is not something that I would permit. Assault is something that I would hope a prosecutor would prosecute. And if there's evidence that there was an assault, there should be a prosecution for that assault. That should not be permitted.
Does that facilitate assault? Letting a biological man go into a biological female's bathroom?
What I would say is a trans person, someone who is trans, who identifies, they should be able to use the facilities that they identify with. But I want to go back and address this notion of Mike Tyson. Here again, we're talking about elite competition, and that's its own discussion, which this bill doesn't solve or address. What it does do is it eliminates the ability of preteens, teens, to be able to participate in sports. I just remind you, Mr. Norman, in many states, wrestling competition is not separated. They don't have, in many states, a girls' wrestling team or a boys' wrestling team. The girls just compete with the guys according to weight class.
It's like Mr. Massey said, I think you're in favor of just doing away with male, female, let everybody compete, have a free-for-all.
Well, that's not true. It's not true. I'm in favor of increasing the opportunities for women and girls generally, that there's a million more opportunities for men and boys than there are for women and girls. And that's the problem that we need to be focused on, not the minute number of trans kids that want to participate in sports. And we shouldn't be stigmatizing or isolating them out. And I know it's that you're a religious man and that you would believe that we would not want to ostracize or subject people to bullying or even higher rates of suicidality. That's just wrong.
Correct, I agree with you. Ms.
Yeah,
Fox,
thank
we'll tell you, Mark, that there's opportunity for women now that have never existed. Women, biological women. Look at and Ashley mentioned the MMA. MMA women are attracting a lot of followers.
Attention, yeah.
But now you put the Mike Tyson types.
Mike Tyson is certainly one of boxing's greatest fighters. His name is one of the most famous and recognizable in the world. Throughout his amazing career, Tyson has made remarkable achievements and set many records. But there were also many outrageous moments in Tyson's career which earned him the nickname the baddest man on the planet.
Into MMA, which he could easily go to, how fair would that be if you had a family member who did just what you said you agreed with, identify and go thrown in with that? I think that's unfair.
Well, Mr.
It's not
Norman,
safe and it's not unfair.
Mr. Norman, if I could just respond
Sure.
to that scenario. I think the MMA folks would have a lot to say about that, just as the NCAA and the IOC have something to say about that. Their stance is not an absolute inclusion, right? They have a concern about fairness of competition. And so that's a legitimate discussion. It's a legitimate debate to have. But what I'm telling you is that this bill is not about addressing that unfairness that you're pointing to. What this bill does is it basically eliminates the ability of trans girls and women to participate in K through 12 and collegiate sports participation on the team with which they identify gender-wise. And, I'm convinced if you and I explored this a lot longer, we would come to an understanding about this. And look, I think there's, what you cite is at the elite competition level, the professional level, let's allow those associations to figure that out.
Ms. Fox?